Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, my name is Matt. We are a family from Fridley, Minnesota, and we've been renting out travel trailers on RV Share and Outdoorsy for the last 5 years. I have a series on my channel here called Is It Worth It?, where we talk about the pros and cons of renting out your RV on these platforms. Like I mentioned in previous videos, this year we're down to just one RV. We have this 2021 Flagstaff 21DS. It's a couples camper, and I just got it all cleaned up and prepped because it's going out on another rental in about an hour. To start out this season update, I have to be honest and admit I'm not super happy with how this season is going so far. Number one, we just haven't brought in the rental income that we have in previous years. We recently had a pretty bad experience with a renter, and there's some things on our rig that are broken that is pretty frustrating. In the last video I mentioned I was going to try a couple different things to try to boost rentals. For starters, I lowered our minimum number of rental nights from 3 down to 2. I hate doing that because it's barely worth the effort for just 2 nights of rental income, but we do have a goal to make $4,000 in rental income this year. So the idea was to allow for 2-night rentals, at least until we hit that goal. Then we can always bump it back up to 3 once we hit our goal. The second thing I did was to put out a Facebook ad, and I've never had to do that in the past. The platform advertising was plenty. In fact, the last couple of years we barely had a weekend open and we didn't do any advertising at all. But anyways, I put an ad out on Facebook, and within 48 hours we got our first rental. And even though we're advertising off platform, we put directly in the ad that we will be using RV Share for the rental. You know, that way all the insurance and everything is covered. Keep it nice and simple. Yeah, so those 2 tweaks definitely seem to help. We brought in a couple more rentals. Now let's talk about the rentals we've had since our last update. We've had 4 rentals. 3 of them were pretty good and 1 not so much. Our first renter was an older couple, and this was their first time using an RV, which always makes you a little nervous as there's a higher chance with inexperienced renters that they might make a mistake or reach out over and over again during the rental with questions. However, these folks did their homework, they watched our rental videos several times, and they actually came pretty well prepared. They took our rig to a campground that was about 100 miles away, and they managed everything just fine. They could have done a better job cleaning the interior, but overall it was a solid rental, and it brought in $420. And ironically enough, the next rental was also a couple that has never rented an RV before, but this guy was an engineer. He was very detail oriented. Really seemed like he knew what he was doing, asked good questions again, and I don't know, when they took it out, I felt like it was in good hands. Again, no issues. It was a 2-nighter. They only went 38 miles away, and another rental with no issues. And that rental only brought in $210. The rental 3 was a couple that has rented before, and I love repeat customers. You know what you're gonna get, and these people are just awesome to work with, super nice. They take it out to a music festival in Wisconsin. They were gone for 3 nights, and that rental brought in $525. Then we had our bad renters, and things started off on a bad foot with communication. You know, anytime somebody books, we immediately start asking some basic questions. You know, where you're gonna go, what are your hookup situations like, what kind of truck, that kind of thing. And then once the rental gets closer, like a week or 2 out, we finalize some of those details. Specifically, you know, we need the height for your hitch, and we need to know when you're gonna pick up, because I work full time. I can't have people just randomly show up at any time in the day, and we just could not get a hold of these people. It wasn't until 10 o'clock the night before the rental that we finally got a hold of them to set up a pickup time. And of course they were a little late, and you know, they showed up in an old ratty truck, and you know, I don't judge people for having older trucks. My truck's not the newest truck in the world either, but you know, there's a difference between an old truck and a truck that's just, you know, somebody doesn't take care of, and this was definitely the latter. And when you see that, you're like, oh, if they don't take care of their own vehicle, are they gonna take care of my rig while it's out on the road? And it turns out they didn't. So they took the RV to a friend's cabin, which was about 110 miles away. And I always get a little nervous when somebody takes the RV to a cabin. You know, the times where we've had the RV come back with scratches, it's almost always when they're at a cabin. You know, you go to a campground and things are, you know, they trim the branches, the trees, that kind of thing. But, you know, when people bring it to a cabin, sometimes they just kind of throw it wherever and they're hitting branches. And we had a couple light scratches earlier this year from a situation like that. Nothing that's not going to be easily buffed out. Anyways, they didn't reach out at all during the rental. And one thing we told them, and we tell everybody, is that we're fairly flexible when they drop it off as far as times, but you just got to give us advance notice. We ask everybody to let us know about 2 hours in advance because we want to be home when they do the drop off so we can do the walk around together. They agreed to that, but they didn't contact us. They dropped it off late afternoon, and of course we weren't home. And I kind of wonder if they intentionally did that, because as soon as we started the RV, we had some questions. I'll show you some clips from that night. First of all, you can see they were actually driving with the awning not all the way shut. And the slide out too, not a ton, but even that was open a little bit.
Like at the baseboard of the bed.
So we see somehow they had water in here, and we're trying to figure out why. The leg of the bed here is a little soft, and you can tell on the edge here that's actually absorbed some moisture. And then we're looking around, and the carpeting right here is wet, but it's just this flat. Like, this carpet really isn't too bad, and you go in here, that's dry, but just right here. So I don't know, somehow they had water on the floor, and we're trying to figure out why that was. You know, did they have something overflow in here? Did they leave a window open? I don't know, but I think we need to give the renters a call and find out. So we verified that the awning and the slide out was working fine. There's no issues there. And I was finally able to get a hold of that renter that night to see what was going on. What in the heck did they do? And I mean, you could just tell they were lying to us. At first they said they just dropped a bottle of water that night, but cleaned it up right away. And I'm trying to explain to them, there's no way that was the case, because the water had a chance to soak up into the veneer.
No, it actually, so it was this morning, he picked it up and he had dropped it, and then it was just, water, and so we just like dried it up with towels, but obviously it got a little bit on the carpet.
And then they changed their story to, well, it was like more like a really large jug of water. But still insisted that they cleaned it up right when they spilled it. And I just don't believe them. I think that, maybe they had a large jug, like one of those 5-gallon things that maybe I don't know, maybe it was on the seat there and fell and drained all night, but it had to have been on the floor for a while to have it soaked up. So we went ahead and put the dehumidifier in. And then, of course, our dehumidifier decided to spring a leak overnight. And when we woke up in the morning, there was another new puddle on the floor. And that water seemed to make the veneer get worse. So now we're in this situation where, what damage was caused by the renters and what was caused by us. And, at the end of the day, it's tough to put a damage amount on, a piece of veneer on the bottom support of a bed. I suppose if we would have taken it to a dealership, they probably would have said replace the whole portion of that bed, and who knows how much that would have been. The carpet dried up fine. There was no damage. The slide out, the awning seemed fine. So at the time we thought, we just have some veneer that's not perfect. We chalked it up to cost of doing business. Called them back the next day, said, most everything dried up. We don't appreciate that you're not being honest about what happened, but whatever, we're going to release your security deposit and just move on. I don't know, the whole thing just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And a month later, I kind of wish I would have gone after them, at least for the bed thing, because we ran into another issue, and I don't know if it's from them or not. When the rental came back, we were, so focused on, the carpet and the veneer, and, we put the bed up and down, to make sure everything's working. But there's one thing I did not check, and that was the inside of this windshield. It's covered up with the bed right now, and when the bed's down, it's actually covered up with a blind. I never lifted that blind up to check to see if there's any damage. It's not a likely place to be damaged. it was like a week and a half after we had released their security deposit, well beyond the 48 hours where you can actually do something about reported damage, that I was washing the RV getting ready for the next rental. And I noticed, I don't know if you can see this, but I noticed a little mark here. And at first I thought it was like a bug splatter. And for the life of me, I could not get it cleaned up. I'm like, what in the world? Then I looked closer and realized that there was actually some cracks in the glass. Now, here's the tricky part. Last year, you can see this scrape right here. I had the kayaks in the truck and I made a tight turn and it scratched the glass and actually created a little bit of a crack in the front here, but it's held and it's been fine for, over a year. But I wonder, like, did I weaken the structural integrity of the window, or did our renters do something? Because that little mark that I thought was on the outside was actually on the inside. And over time now, those cracks have spread and this whole inside windshield is a complete mess. So I ended up having to do an insurance claim on it. Again, it'd be really tricky to blame the renters for that since there's already some damage on the inside. But my gut says those renters did something, because it's, I'm gonna put this bed down and show you here. So here's the new cracks that started to form, and they're kind of down on the right where the kayaks sit, kind of up maybe towards the middle. Like I said, I don't know. So it's really hard to say if that original damage from last year caused all this or the renters did it. I don't know, but I had to file an insurance claim. And people actually ask me what we do for insurance. We switched over to Roamly Insurance. I really like them. They're the only insurance company that acknowledges and approves the fact that you rent out your RV. Other companies could cancel you if you do that. And they have a lot of RV specific insurance. Like I have coverage for, if mice or pests got in here, did damage, that would be covered. I got coverage for the roof, that kind of thing. And they were so great to work with this damage. Within 24 hours of reporting the claim, which was super easy, all I had to do was fill out a description of what had happened and a couple photos. They had money in my checking account, like I said, within 24 hours. Now, I've been working with Lazy Days RV in Ramsey, Minnesota to set up an appointment to get this done. Roamly gave an estimate of $1,200 to get it fixed. I have a $500 deductible, so that sucks, comes out of my pocket. And they said too, if it ends up being a little bit more, they'll do a supplemental and get it covered. Again, super great to work with, super easy, highly recommend them. And in fact, they partner with the channel, and if you wanted to use the link in the description, you can get a free quote, and it'll help us out too as well. So we got this rental going out in an hour, and I just hate sending it out when it's not perfect. These front windows I think are kind of dumb with a Murphy bed situation anyways. During the day we always have the Murphy bed up, so we never really use or look out that window. But still, I like the renters to have a nice, perfect RV when it goes out. And here's another issue that I'm having, and this is just super frustrating. This actually happened on our last rental when my wife and I took the camper out. I was extending the awning and also hear this huge pop, and the whole awning system here came apart. Basically what had happened, if you see they have these little pins with these fasteners on them, the very top pin on the other side, that fastener had come off and the pin had worked its way out. So the whole assembly just came apart, and in the process of trying to get it back together, this whole awning arm got warped and bent, and I have to get a whole new one. We're barely able to get it back together and held in place with zip ties. I had to take the strut out to get everything back together. That just kind of sucks. In a way, I'm kind of glad that it happened to us. It's another one of those things where, if that would have happened on a rental, how do you determine what was caused by misuse or what happened just because it's an RV? Because RVs break, and especially awnings. I hate awnings. I have seen on some Facebook groups, some owner groups, that some people actually don't even allow awning use. Protects them, but it also protects your renters too. like happened to us, because these things can break even when you're using them the right way. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe next year we unplug the awning and don't allow it for rental. So I'm dealing with that. That's super frustrating. And you know, my mind goes back to, you know, it was over a month ago, but those renters came back. They drove 100 miles with that awning out a little bit. Could that have created extra pressure and caused that fastener to come off? I don't know, but it's where my mind goes. And the other issue we've been having is not a minor one, and it seems to have gone away, but our slide out, for some reason, every once in a while when it is all the way in, you press the button for it to go out and you just hear this clicking noise. It doesn't move, and then you got to push the button in and out before it finally, you know, had a buck run through our yard. Anyways, it eventually works. You just gotta like hit the button a couple different times, and the last couple times we've done the slide out, it's been fine. I got to do a little bit of research to see why that might be happening. But again, in the back of my mind, I wonder, you know, they drove home with the slide out partially out. Did that do something inside? I don't know, but you know, it only takes one bad renter to change your whole viewpoint on how this rental thing works. You know, I can handle one bad rental a year. You know, it's not always going to be perfect, but man, if we keep getting ones like that, I don't think I would do this anymore. Another thing I talk about in these videos are updates, improvements, gadgets that we get for the RV. The other thing we added this time is this skylight cover, and it's also an insulator by Safner, I think is the brand. I'll put a link in the description below. It's only like 15 bucks, super easy to install. It has this Velcro, and we really like it because the skylight here right above the bed, it's just super bright in the morning. So having that up there helps with the sleeping, and it's supposed to help insulate the inside too, keep some of that heat out in the summer, some of the cold out in the winter. Like I said, really easy to install, take on and off, really like that. Otherwise, everything else is kind of status quo. So to answer the question, is it worth it to rent out your RV? The answer for this season is yes, but barely. We'll see how this next rental goes. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.